Okay.
Okay. In accordance with the open meetings law, the Lake Hopatcong Commission has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof delivered or mailed or electronically mailed to the following: the Daily Record, and posted on the Lake Hopatcong Commission website. We have a flag we can salute.
Oh yeah, hold on one second. Sorry, I forgot about that. One second here. Okay.
Okay, if you guys will stand and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would you call a roll, Colleen?
Yes. Crowley,
Here.
Fish, Will Susan, McCarthy,
Here.
Wazowski, Probs,
here,
Hoferkamp,
Here.
Steinbaum,
Here.
Stevens,
Yeah, I'm here.
Tessier.
Here.
I just saw Josh Ozowski come on. I think. Zochek,
Here.
Senator,
Here.
Gilfillan,
Here.
Hirschfeld,
Here.
Castellon,
here.
Solaro, and Smith.
Here.
All right. So Ron, if you want to,
Yeah, I will entertain a motion to move into executive session to discuss legal and personnel matters. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
And who seconded?
Richard.
sorry, it has to be primary
Okay.
commissioner since you're,
I'll second it. This is Mark Crowley.
okay, thanks.
Mark. Okay, Mark. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're in exec, guys.
Okay, wait, I have to move us into an executive session, so
Okay.
just give me a second here. McCarthy,
Yes.
Wazowski,
Yes.
Probs,
And you're muted.
And you're muted.
Got
There
it?
you go. There you go. You're there. Okay.
Probs,
Yes.
Steinbaum,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Tessier,
Yes.
what are we missing? Senator,
Yes.
and Solara's absent. Smith,
Yes.
okay.
Okay, the next item is the treasurer's report and the list of bills, the bill list.
Okay, so Mark isn't here tonight, so I can tell you that as of September 30th, the balance in the account was $384,462.54. For the list of bills, I did, so in the list of bills that I sent you, I did have to make one addition, which was that I went to Staples and got envelopes, so I included that, which was an additional $10. So there's
Unacceptable.
11 bills totaling $34,056.24. And if you note, by Campbell Supply, I have an asterisk that was previously approved at $472.38 during our September meeting, but an updated invoice from them reflects the true number of $492 and 1 cent. So I voided the original check, and it's been, so if you approve tonight, that'll be for the
Okay.
true
It was
amount.
another $20 or something? Yeah.
Right, yeah, after they did the repairs.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. This is Mark Crowley.
Second, Dan McCarthy.
All right. Anybody have any questions on any of the bills? Let's call a roll, please.
Crowley,
Yes.
Wolferkamp,
Yes.
McCarthy,
Yes.
Wazowski,
Yes.
Probs,
Yes.
Steinbaum,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Tessier,
Yes.
Gilfillan,
Yes.
Senator,
Yes.
and Smith.
Yes. Correspondence. We've got something on land use?
Well, just our typical land use applications. There'll be an update from the land use committee later in the meeting.
Okay.
The DEP, so Melissa sent over weed harvesting supply list, which she may give an update on during the weed harvesting update later in the meeting, but that is something we received. And the other thing is a letter from Weldon Quarry in response to the, I guess the senator. So on September 22nd, we received notice of a large blast from several residents around the lake, and subsequent rock fine plume that kind of came over the lake. So that we forwarded the notification from those residents onto DEP and to our 3 senators. So I believe the senator sent a letter, and the quarry's response was in response to the letter sent by the senators. So that was included in your packet.
Are we discussing the letter or?
Go ahead. You got comments? Go ahead.
It's just, I guess, more of an attitude observation. And they seem to be, flawless in their operations. And they're boasting about it spending $150,000 to review their process. And they make reference to the fact that this particular blast, even though it's only like 50 yards from the shoreline of the lake, was one of their first times making a blast at a high elevation. So they are looking into whether they're going to continue blasting from a high elevation. But once again, they minimize impact all the time. And I know we're not getting into air quality, and this was basically an air quality issue. And it's received a lot of publicity on Facebook with pictures. So residents are concerned and interested in what's going on. So I don't know what they were attempting to do in communicating this particular incident to the senators. But they did make a point of how wonderful they are and how they're going to prevent another cloud dust by changing the elevation of the blast. But
And should we send that letter to our attorney and the senator's letters if he doesn't have those?
probably I would, yeah.
Do we know did he get copies of that letter, Colleen?
I thought that he was on it, but I'll double check.
Okay.
So that's all I have for correspondence.
Okay. All right, under the chairman's report, as you know, we did an executive session. I spent a little time with our administrative consultant and to review the current contract, which we'll bring up later on in the meeting here. And in addition to that, Commissioner McCarthy and I visited the garage where the harvesters are stored. We had a look at the harvester that was in the accident, which is still outside in the parking lot, but we got around the garage and went through where they are on getting the other harvesters ready, and spent some time meeting with the entire staff that's there. There was, I think 3 or 4 of them, right, Dan?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so it was a good visit. It was good for them to know that I guess we care and we're over there, and you know, they wanted to vent, I guess, and it was good. So we got to try to figure out now. Got to find the right person in Trenton that will let them bring that harvester. When I say that harvester, we know that's the one was in the accident inside before the cold weather gets there, because as that went upside down, I'm pretty sure they are also, that water got into the engine and we don't want it to freeze out there. We want to get it in the garage where it's heated and let them get to the end of the investigation so we can take a look at what actually is going to take to get that thing back in operation again. And that's really all I have. Dan, you want to, well, you can add, when you go around for your turn, you can add anything you want to that too. Okay, that's all I have. The commissioners who want to go around the table, Dan, you want to start with you in case you want to take up on where I left off?
The summary of our trip to the Franklin facility, that was very accurate. Just with respect to the harvester engine, again, there's no guarantees that it's not already destroyed. But it was explained to us that it might be a simple rebuild if they get it in before it freezes. But if it freezes, then it's a total loss. So what we're trying to do, in essence, is mitigate damages.
And we were told not to move the harvester, not to touch it, not even to power wash it. Well, so I think originally Mike said somebody told him from DEP verbally that they could power wash it, but then he never got anything. I told him, don't get anything in writings. Maybe Melissa could add to that somehow, or Josh. I don't think we should touch that machine unless we get something in writing. So at least power wash it and then take it inside so you don't bring all that crap in the garage.
Should we send a letter to DEP?
Yes, we're going to make contact this week. Yes.
Yeah, because just to be clear, the staff was told that machine is off limits. They can't touch it. They can't do anything with it. But I guess the recommendation is to move it inside. They have room for it while they have staff too, because we have seasonal staff, and while they have the staff and the ability to move it inside, they were hoping that could be made a priority, just to help mitigate damages and to prevent freeze up of anything which could freeze.
Okay, and how are we going to go around the table? You guys just jump in, whoever wants to make a comment.
Ron, this is Mark Crowley.
Sure.
The only comment I really want to make is I made earlier, but I want to make it in the public session is I have a council meeting. I'm going to be getting off shortly. I have a council meeting at 7:30.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments they'd like to share?
Well, we're going to talk about the land use later, right, Colleen? Okay.
Colleen?
Yes.
I have nothing else.
Okay.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be jumping off soon to go to our council meeting here in Roxbury.
Okay.
Good seeing everybody.
Good.
Stay healthy.
Do.
Colleen, who's making the Morris County Parks 319 grant presentation?
That would be Dave Helmer, who's
Okay.
on.
Good. Dave, you want to share with us?
Sure. I think Colleen has a presentation. I just put a few slides together. I know the original request was to review the Park Commission's DEP grant application to provide better stormwater management from the marina into the lake. But we're really working on 3 projects at the marina at this point in time, and they all kind of tie in together. Colleen, the next slide.
Oh, let's see. How do I do that? Oh, there we go.
So this is a multifaceted improvements for the site. I'd like to acknowledge the Lake Hopatcong Foundation in 2014 provided the commission with funding to begin a conceptual plan for the rehabilitation of our pavilion at Lees County Park Marina. Some of you may know that the marina was donated to the Park Commission in 1994 by Mr. Lee and his wife and son and daughter. And we continue to operate what is a very busy public marina. We originally began moving forward on the rehabilitation plans for the pavilion itself, and understanding that this structure was not operating its fullest capacity for a number of years. We knew that at some point in time, the final use of this facility will be used for public access, weddings, meetings, scout troop events and such, probably usually at the same time of the year. The marina is in operation, so parking and supplying parking to the pavilion was very critical. And then once we began what we call our circulation and access plan for the marina, during that time frame, we were also made aware of the NJDEP Water Quality Restoration Grant after the aftermath of the HAB issue we had on the lake last year. Next slide, please. Kind of give you a little perspective of the before and the now. The Mount Arlington Historical Society has provided us with some images. In the bottom right-hand corner, you see the pavilion as it looks at this point. A somewhat desolate picture. We've had a beautiful summer on the lake this year, knock on wood. And in the upper left-hand corner is the pavilion in its full height of operation. I think Marty Kane's on the phone, but can probably tell me probably somewhere between the 20s and the 40s here. And I always like the image here. It's a little difficult to see, but back then you could rent bathing suits for 25 cents a day. I don't know if that would go over well in this day and age, but this building has a sense of place in the Lake Hopatcong community. Next image, please. So we've moved forward, hired an architect, Connolly and Hickey, a historic sites architect. Although the building itself is not on the register, it is eligible to be on the register. We've committed to keeping the exterior vernacular of the building as it was at the time during the 20s and the 40s, removing some of the modern elements and enhancing the site. Here is a conceptual drawing of the west elevation on the top right-hand corner. So you're actually coincides with the picture on the left. You're looking from the lake into the pavilion. And then the southern elevation in the bottom set of pictures, a view that you would see as you're driving into the marina itself and looking to the southern elevation of that site. Next slide, please. So as of now, we're probably at about 50% design plans. We've had a couple delays, one being COVID, but also our architect is heavily steeped in preparing historic planning documents as part of the Morris County Historic Preservation Trust program. So they were given some time to be able to provide those documents for the various municipalities and nonprofits submitting grants. And currently we're waiting on our structural and mechanical and electrical plans for the building. But here basically in front of you is what the floor plan for the main floor will look like. It'll be a facility that has what we call a catering kitchen and the proper accoutrements to allow for a caterer to come in or a family to rent the facility and provide warming areas for warming stations for food. The plan will allow for 137 individuals at tables and chairs in kind of in a wedding banquet style, or for a meeting session, 294 individuals, chairs only in the site. But a very flexible floor plan. We also are now providing both the barrier-free code and the Title II ADA standard for ADA access to the structures. And once again, some of these ideas are being modeled on the 2014 feasibility study that was funded partially by the Lake Hopatcong Foundation back in 2014. Even with the setbacks, we're anticipating that final design hopefully will be done sometime near the end of January. Bid package will be produced and we'll be able to go out to bid. in early 2021. It took us a number of years to acquire our capital funding. Basically, since 2013 up through 2019, we've been able to set aside enough funds to coincide with the rehabilitation of this structure. So we're happy to see that moving forward. But again, as you'll see from the next slide, very important to provide a circulation plan for what is a very busy marina, but also to provide the appropriate parking for the pavilion in its greatest capacity during probably the height of the season. So a busy July Saturday coinciding on the lake, coinciding with a busy Saturday rental of the building, we had to try to ensure that we have enough parking on the site to be able to provide both of those recreational components. I would also take note that the ability to move forward on our total circulation plan for the facility is that we do have 2 remaining year-round residential trailers on site. When the property was donated to the Park Commission, it came with 20 residential trailers. And now we're just down to two individuals remaining on site. And those trailer areas, as you'll see in an upcoming drawing, will allow for the increased parking for both the marina activities as well as the pavilion activities. The next slide will give you a little example of the part of the circulation plan, both during modern times and also back during the height of the Lees Pavilion activities. Basically, the marina was an area where you could rent boats and parking to provide for a little promenade between the pavilion and throughout the Lee property on the site. The next slide will show you where we are to date on our circulation and access plan, with both, which incorporates the marina operations. If you're looking kind of in the center left of the screen, the large parking areas in green mass, and then off to the right are the structures, including the pavilion. So we're trying to provide, safe interaction before, once again, a very busy marina. Where we average in an August 900 daily launches in the month of August on average. Plus, we also have 100 slips on site and some field and launch activities. And so it was very fortuitous that during this plan, and it would be implemented in 4 phases. We're currently in preliminary design, but that the opportunity to go after some of the NJDPE non-point source pollution restoration and mitigation grant funding. On the next slide, please. So this is, I believe, if I'm correct on this, is a different source that was available last year than call it the HAB grant funding that either the commission or the foundation went after for some improvements on the lake. So we were asked, not to submit the grant to the same program and try to get as much money to help benefit the viability of the lake itself. So this is coming from the non-point source pollution side of that funding, and I believe together we probably have nearly $1 million being able to go to improvements in the lake water quality. The commission received a $495,000 grant, and this is green infrastructure improvements and stormwater control. The image kind of in the middle of the screen with the fire hydrant is actually a storm drain on Howard Boulevard. And interestingly enough, that storm drain actually goes through the basement of the pavilion and daylights near one of our slip areas. The next slide will give you some images of the type of stormwater flow that can occur on the site. If you're familiar with Lees, has some very steep areas, and since the property is so busy during the season, there's a pretty intense impact to the turf where most of the parking takes place. And you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, you get some exposed earth. That exposed earth, of course, when it rains, just hits the storm drain and flows into the lake. Next slide, please. I guess one of the only beneficial aspects of that is we do not do any type of fertilization or applications on the Lees property. So it's predominantly sedimentation that's hitting the lake from this site and not nitrates and such. But you can see how disturbed that area gets. The upper left hand is basically the entrance area, and you can even see the flow of water across the driveway in a heavy storm, and then what happens in the grassy field. And we stay relatively busy through end of October, so we don't get a lot of time for turf regrowth. So a lot of these areas stay exposed. The next slide will give you some additional the history of storm drains throughout the property. Once again, the steepness. So this image on the right-hand side, you're not as far up as the Mount Arlington Borough Town Hall, but pretty far up, and that's a straight run, down to the lake and our launch areas. And again, some of the former storm drains on the property that are collapsing and in bad condition. So this plan, as we see from the next slide, is the concept plan that was actually provided as part of the grant application. So not all of the elements are actually going to be part of the grant. The elements that are dealing basically with the more natural bioretention systems are going to be part of the grant project, and then there were some storm drain elements that were going to be part of our circulation plan to begin with. And once again, we're looking at a kind of at least a four-phased approach. The first phase will hit some of the areas near the boat launch ramp areas, and then also near the pavilion area. And in the upper parking lots you see in this shot, which would be towards the left-hand side of the screen, we do have remaining trailers on site, so we'll try not to do any disturbance in those areas until those trailers are no longer being used on the property. But once again, giving us good parking access to the pavilion, anticipating we've got, a majority of the folks on the site wearing boat shoes or sandals, but then folks using the pavilion itself will, be probably wearing different footwear as it relates to any type of special event. The next couple of images will show you the types of detention, retention, and or retrofitting of existing infrastructure on the property. You'll see the more vegetative style of capturing runoff in your bottom right-hand screen. And I will say, although I'm a park guy, we've used, green technology in the past, and it does take maintenance, to keep areas looking good. But I think a little bit of greenery and breaking up of the Lees Marina property will also add some aesthetics as it relates to the pavilion itself. But in this screen and the next shot, just kind of showing the different types of retention, types of infrastructure we may see on that property to capture and slow down the flow of water. So we remain dedicated, to all three aspects of this. The grant allows us, I think, a 3-year time frame to make the improvements. Our engineers dealing with the circulation plan have tied in to the pavilion, so dealing with parking and ramps and such to the pavilion are in place. So as we're able to be able to bid out the final construction for the pavilion, we'll be able to start implementing some of the stormwater management improvements on the property itself. And the last screen is just another historic shot of the pavilion looking from Howard Boulevard, which was back then looks almost like a dirt road. But it looks like this area was as busy as it was back then as it is these days, at least in the summertime. So hopefully it gives you a little insight of some of the projects that are happening on the site and the Commission's commitment to trying to address any stormwater issues we're having coming from our property and trying to do our best to improve the lake as best we can. And I'm happy to take any questions.
How much will you be increasing the impervious coverage by? Do you know yet?
So the engineers are telling us we're not increasing the impervious coverage. Once again, it's difficult to see, if I had some aerial shots, a lot of those parking areas you saw on the left-hand side of the screen are the areas where these trailers were. So there were 20 original trailers, all had access to sewer water line and gas. And then in some areas, we've tested this before in some of our other parks, we would have some of the pervious pavement. Once again, it comes with an obligation of maintenance. You let that pavement clog up, it turns into an impervious surface. But there should be a nominal transition between increased impervious to what we have on the site as it is. A lot of it, once again, as you know, the DEP considers stone dust and compacted gravel to be impervious. But on heavy rainstorms on those steep slopes, a lot of that material, moves its way into the lake. Hopefully, we'll, once again, that'll be an improvement to the site as well, maintenance improvement to the site.
Have you finished your green infrastructure design, or you just have a conceptual?
Just a conceptual. So what you saw before you was the package that was submitted to DEP. And then we'll be evaluating, once again, final parking plans. We'll tie into what the green infrastructure is. And I'm a form follows function kind of guy. We can't install things. The marina is basically operated with part-time seasonal staff, so you can't give me this great green vegetative plan. I can't have Frelinghuysen Arboretum northwest at Lees Marina, so it has to be maintained appropriately. We may end up, having an interlocal agreement. I know Jefferson Township has a machine that deals with pulling the siltation out of the storm drains. So there'll be some collaboration areas that relate to those activities as well.
Have you looked at putting in a rain garden?
Well, that's what we've done in the past, and I think that one image where you saw those grasses is what is a lower maintenance rain garden. But once again, you've got to maintain those rain gardens. But once again, luckily we don't fertilize that property, which the detriment is you don't have great grass growth and the heavy wear and tear. But the greenery, the improvements of those areas, I think from a biobasins will actually look aesthetically pleasing on that property. It looks pretty haggard during the wintertime and the late season.
Along the actual shoreline, have you looked at or have room to fit any vegetative?
Yeah, so there are some areas in the plans that show some type of filtration, whether that becomes a grassy area or it becomes a planting area of some sort. But that's the best way to capture that material as it's flowing down the hill.
So will you share with us the green infrastructure plans when you develop them?
Absolutely. I'll be happy to come back and provide you a presentation or send you the plans. Yeah, so as I'm looking at the plan now, there is some greenery in the area between the pavement and the dock space. It just depends on what that greenery is.
Right. It's good if you can get any right on the water line.
Yep.
Dave, I did have. Oh, sorry, Bob. Didn't mean to interrupt. Will this go before the Mount Arlington Land Use Board?
So the Park Commission provides a courtesy review.
Okay.
We do work well with Mount Arlington on a number of issues. In fact, they just made an improvement to some storm drainage system that flows through our property. So yes, we want to make everybody aware of that processes.
But it's not something that needs to necessarily be approved by the Land Use Board?
Correct.
Okay, because the only reason I ask is that that would be one way that the commission would see the application. But
I'd be happy to provide you. It's all, we kind of learn and benefit from each other on how these different applications can happen at different locations. So commission has no problem with sharing that information with you folks.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Dave, I have a couple of questions. Fred Steinbaum.
Sure.
What about the basement of the pavilion? What are your plans for the basement?
So the basement of the pavilion, if it was going to be a useful space, if you haven't been in that space, it's not a code height. It's extremely wet. So the decision was made to really, you'll have no access from the first floor down into the basement, and it'll be left basically in its current state. To have made it a useful space, you'd have to go in and dig out the basement, and you also have to do fire suppression between the two floors. The commission felt that costly expense for the benefit of that space, the useful benefit of that space would not work out well.
Yeah, I know at one time there was a consideration for the rowing club to put some facilities in there.
Right. And we look at the rowing club, I can't tell you that other structures on the property may be removed over time. So we look at that, the repurposing of the rowing club space with what we call the gray locker building next to it, that actually the rowing club actually uses now for its workout space, and what may happen to the structures further down Howard Boulevard as it relates to useful space for the club or any other group, a hobby group that would want to use the site.
Yeah, that I know that doesn't seem ideal now with what they have.
Right.
Just wonder. The other question is, at one time, the marina sold gas and there were fuel tanks right next to the lake. And I just wonder, were they mitigated at the time that they were donated? Are you aware of that?
I am aware of that. So I can tell you a couple things, is that as part of the Mount Arlington Board of Adjustments review of the donation of this project, and the reason they had to become involved is because the permanent residential trailer area had to be subdivided from the rest of the property. From a park property perspective, we don't pay property taxes, but because the residential area was considered a business use, we actually pay taxes on that 1.06 acres where those residences are. There are no underground tanks on the property, either on the lakeside or on the property we own across the street. Those were all removed, probably the last one, probably about 8 years ago. And the Board of Adjustment approval, let's say, for the property, we are not allowed to permit any maintenance or heavy maintenance of boats on the site, and it precludes us from providing fuel on the property as well. So those are not, even if we thought in the future that would be beneficial to the site, we're not permitted to allow those components. But anything that was underground is gone.
Yeah, well, congratulations. It looks like a wonderful plan that will really benefit the lake.
Hopefully the implementation works.
And the water quality.
Thank you.
Thank you very
David,
much.
Sorry, I just have one other quick question.
Sure.
So just curious that since this is funded by DEP, do they have to have like final approval on the plans that you're putting through?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Right. We have a pretty good relationship, but you never know as it relates to the lake and what they're going to be looking at with these funds. But we know the level of conceptual planning we submitted for the grant. Hopefully, that's the sign that we receive full approval moving forward.
Okay.
Have you looked
Thank
at?
you.
I'm
You're
sorry.
welcome.
I just had one question, quick. Have you looked at? We're always worried about adding additional invasive species to the lake. So I'm sure you're addressing that with information and
Absolutely.
washing for the boats or whatever.
And we've worked with the Lake Hopatcong Foundation. I know they would love to see a boat wash station on the site.
Right.
But we're an extremely busy property, and I can only imagine the mayor of Mount Arlington thanking me for all the traffic up Howard Boulevard as the boat stations are going in. But we work very closely over the last, not this past year because of the environment we're in, but we've had Lake Hopatcong staff at the marina all summer long, taking surveys of boats and working with that process. And we're acutely aware. We deal with water chestnut in our other parks. Eliminating and reducing invasives throughout the park system is a goal of ours. So,
But no boat wash station.
No boat wash, unless they can come up with a great way to not cause a hazard on Howard Boulevard. Because that's my worry. This has been a great year. We've controlled the number of boats on the property, kind of kept it to 60 a day, daily launches. But if you've been around Lees Marina and on a busy 4th of July weekend, it can be quite interesting out there. But any of the messaging that the foundation provides us, we're happy to put on site, signage. You may be aware we deal with, it's not invasives, but the boat shrink wrapping program collection through the MUA. We were the first to say, yeah, sure, put a bin on our site and we'll collect those materials. So we're always, in the bigger picture of the Park Commission, our 38 other facilities and 21,000 acres of land, we're always looking to try to reduce the impacts of invasives on the property. I just wish the emerald ash borer would go after some of the non-natives in the lake, but we could never make that happen.
Okay. Anyone else? David, thank you very much. It was a super presentation.
Thank you. And please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you need anything.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.
Next item on the agenda is the Lake Hopatcong Foundation update. Mr. Kane.
Thank you very much. I know Dave already jumped off, but as far as the boat wash goes, let me just say that that is something that remains of tremendous interest to the foundation, and we are looking and will continue to look at possibilities that could get the boats washed before they enter Lake Hopatcong in some sort of a manner. Obviously, that's really a truly only effective way to be dealing with invasives, as many of you know if you go up to Lake George and other lakes. Okay, just a few quick items tonight. As most of you probably know, our founding and longtime executive director, Jess Murphy, has moved on from our organization. She'll still remain active with us, I'm sure, in the years as a volunteer and otherwise. But right now, she's tending to her newborn and 3 other children. So we are in the process of a search for a new executive director. So we'll keep you informed as that goes on. We hope to have someone certainly aboard by the beginning of the year. And until that time, myself and Bob Hamburger, my deputy board chair at the foundation, will be kind of handling that role between us. One of the things we found this year at the lake, the biggest concern, at least we heard, was boating safety with the incredible use of the lake. And that is something that we really want to take a good look at going forward. Don IC is on. She's got a program that we hope to be coming out with a whole boating safety videos. And we also just want to look at some other possibilities within Byram Cove and elsewhere that might be able to make the lake safer. So I think what we want to look at is being able to bounce off of the commission some ideas and see if we can work together on a plan that would obtain wide acceptance at the lake that we might be able to take forward to the Boating Regulation Commission and DEP. So hopefully more to follow on that. Perhaps we can set up a small committee and work on offline on that this winter. Our other organizations, we have our mayor's meeting. That continues to work very well about every couple of months. It really is a wonderful forum to let the 4 mayors work together and also to run past them various ideas and possibilities and get their feedback on it as a group. So the next one of those will be occurring in the middle of November. Usually Colleen and Ron represent you folks there. So we're real happy with the way that one is working out. And finally, our Public Lakes Alliance of New Jersey, which is a real attempt to get the lakes in New Jersey that have common problems and issues such as ours together in a forum for advocacy purposes so that they have a stronger voice when we approach Trenton on issues, and also to help DEP that they're hearing from a more uniform voice about lake issues rather than just, this lake is calling one day, we're calling one day, Greenwood Lake is calling another, Deal Lake is calling a third. So, to try to be able to kind of give them what our real issues are. And so we're happy with the way that's going. And that next meeting will be coming up also in the mid-November to early December timeframe. And I see Mayor Francis on tonight, and I just wanted to kind of give him a shout out for the great job of the aeration in Crescent Cove. Hopefully he'll hop on board later and give you his own report on that. But I think any of you who have taken your boats into Crescent Cove anytime from really August on have seen a tremendous improvement there as one of the ongoing HABS projects. And I think it shows just some of the potential of things that can be brought through this forum and otherwise to really improve the lake. So with that, and I'll also give one more shout out for Colleen because she really provides us a tremendous link to work between the 2 organizations. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty. Anybody have any comments back to Marty? Okay, Princeton Hydro.
So Princeton Hydro, Fred is on vacation, which is a very well-deserved vacation, I think. So we don't have someone here from Princeton Hydro to give an update, but I'll just say our HAPS grant projects are moving along. As of last week, I think Princeton Hydro is out doing the last little bit of work that they needed to do before they could install the aeration units. They did another treatment of Foslock in Ashley Cove. And Fred is working on finding additional sources of funding for some more stormwater projects through Greenvest, who did that presentation, I think it was back in August for the commission. And then he's also working on identifying some supplemental environmental projects to upload to a DEP website. So that may be another source of funding going forward. So that's basically what I have for Princeton Hydro.
Thank you. Updates, state park updates. You, Melissa?
Good evening. Hi, everyone. How are you? Hope everyone's okay.
Well, before you start, Melissa, I understand you're moving on this?
Yes, I will be trying a temporary assignment to see how it goes.
Well,
But I will share that it's been a really good experience. I've enjoyed working with everybody at the lake. I really have grown fond of the lake. Being a person that's always liked water, it was a really great experience. But I am still, you guys all have my emails, and I always say that I'm always here if you guys ever need anything. I'm always happy to help if I can in any way.
I want to thank you for your cooperation and over all this time here, and you've been a tremendous help to us, and good luck in your new assignment.
Thank you, Ron. As far as the water level update goes, we are in the process of reviewing the water lowering application. So that should hopefully be getting processed shortly. It would be our 22-inch drawdown this year. And as far as weed harvesting updates go, the crew is still working on mostly grounds maintenance and projects over at the Franklin facility. I heard you mention that you guys had a site visit, and you made you guys talked about having the harvester drained and stored and cleaned. I just wanted to share that there has been some communication regarding that, and we're on a holding pattern because there's some communications that still need to take place before that can be cleaned and moved. But from the communications I've received, there's hope that as soon as this all gets addressed, it will be happening at some point. So that communication has taken place. I wanted to reassure you of that. And hopefully we'll be able to start moving on that within the next couple of weeks before the weather turns.
Thank you.
And I did submit the report that you guys have regarding a proposed program for the winter and spring. We still have the 3 gentlemen reporting to the site. However, probably within the next month or so, that's going to start changing because 2 of them actually go away for the winter. And then the other gentleman, we have to also watch their hours. So the younger fellow might have to be put on hold so that we don't exhaust all their hours so they could return back in the spring. But I think that's all I have for now that I could think of. I did send Colleen an invoice today on some of the janitorial supplies we received last week. And I think I got everything covered so far that's been happening since our last meeting. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Is this your last meeting, Melissa, with us?
I'm not sure, but possibly.
Okay. Anything else? For Melissa?
I just have one question to understand. You don't have a date yet on the actual start of the drawdown?
So the way the fisheries issues the permit and the way the administrative code for protection of aquatic biota reads is that the drawdown in this part of the state needs to be completed by November 1st. So chances are it'll begin either by November 1st or soon after November 1st. But I'm expecting it to happen before the end of this month.
Thank you.
Yep.
Melissa, typically the first hard freeze of the season occurs the last week of October. So that only gives us about 10 days to get that one harvester in the building where it's warm. So we need to kind of work quickly on that, getting permission to get that into the building.
Yeah, I have expressed concerns about the machine's status due to the fact that it still has fluids in it. So I hope to be able to give you an update by the end of the week, hopefully, if not next week.
Very good.
And then I was just going to chime in, since maybe this fits in this area, but the remediation on the state park building is supposed to be beginning next week. So that means that the commission's office may be back up and running sometime in the near future.
Correct, Colleen. I'm sorry. I meant to share
That's
with
okay.
you that they are starting on Monday. So far, we haven't heard any change, so they should be there Monday. But they did ask that everything get removed so that it's protected, nothing gets contaminated, only because if they have to remove the entire ceiling in your office, they don't want anything in there.
Is there anything still in the office, Colleen?
Yeah, I have to get some boxes out of there, so I'll do that before the end of this week.
Okay.
Yeah, please reach out to Mike. He's aware that you're gonna be reaching out to him to move the
Yeah.
boxes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, anything else from Melissa? Thank you again, Melissa. And Josh, are you up for the DEP update?
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot tonight. Just a small update on the CAC, the Citizen Advisory Committee. We did meet last week after being off quite a few months. So some of you were on that. Thank you for participating. And then we're scheduled to meet again next month. So we're moving on that again.
Good.
And that's all I have for tonight.
Okay. Who's going to do the, Colleen, are you going to give us the grant updates? Colleen?
I think, yep, sorry. There's nothing really new to report there, just on the aeration unit. Like I mentioned, those are getting installed hopefully over the next month, and the ones that aren't installed now will be installed very early next spring. And the last treatment of Foslock was completed in Ashley Cove last week. So.
Okay. What, Higlin?
Okay, so that was the Green Pond organization who got in touch with us about demonstrating their dash boat, the diver assisted suction harvesting, and the sonar. So we signed and sent back the agreement, and they've gotten back to us and said that they would prefer to do the work early in the spring. So that's going to be, they're going to contact us in April to set up a date.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yep.
How about committee updates, land use? Land use committee update?
You want me to start, Fred? Or Colleen? All right, so the Land Use Committee, we're taking a picture of what all the regulations are in each municipality, setting up a matrix to see where we are, and some state stormwater regulations. And once we have a good picture, then we're gonna talk to Princeton Hydro about what they think of the current regulations, and maybe we'll make some suggestions if they could be improved or modified or what makes sense. But first, you really have to know where you are before you can move forward. So I know Ann and I got Neil and Fred were on that, so I don't know if anyone else has any comments.
I think we just need to get the boards from each town, you know, on the same wavelength as us, and how important this is, you know? Like we talked at the meetings, not trying to demand them to do these things, but try them to agree with us and say, you know, this is all a great idea, and just implement it right into their ideas.
Mhm. Right. So we're in a process of doing, that's a process.
Good, good. Appreciate your efforts. That's a long drawn out. It's not going to be a quick fix, but you
Right.
got to stick with it.
Yeah.
Anything else on land use?
No, we are looking, Ken, one planner is looking at trying to find a way we can get noticed on the ordinance, on the applications the same time as the staff does in the municipalities.
Yeah, give you more time to review it. Yep.
Right, so he's looking at that, and at our next land use board meeting, he'll have a presentation on that.
Good, great. Ice retardant?
Okay, yes, so Colleen was kind enough to put together a little presentation and send it along to everybody. I trust everybody's had the chance to look at it. It includes a PowerPoint presentation, which we'd like to present to the governing bodies of the 4 towns. And there's also a markup of Hopatcong's current ordinance with our proposals. So does anybody have any comments or questions? Our aim tonight would be to have everybody look at it and bless it, if possible, on behalf of the Lake Hopatcong Commission as a whole, so that we can have your blessing, obviously, to go forward and present this to the 4 towns and see if we can make some progress on this issue, which is really a matter of public safety. Any of the other committee members have any observations to add, or we're just looking for feedback, I guess?
Dan, I got some issues with it across the board, quite frankly. And in discussing this I just became aware of it over the last, when Colleen sent it out, basically. While I applaud the effort to try to do certain things to make things better, you're in an interesting area of the law here in terms of our zoning officer will not be going out onto the lake, first of all. I asked if there were any complaints last year. He had 0 complaints last year. He said over the years he's gotten a few complaints. The most he's ever done is written a summons. He thinks if it was taken to court, they would lose because it's state property. I think efforts ought to be, if we're going to really try to change something or do better, I think this has to come as a state law enforced by the state police. Our zoning officer cannot go onto someone's property who's the subject property. They cannot see even some of the stuff, particularly if an ice eater is in a boathouse. It's underneath the boathouse creating the water. I think the other issue is that you're trying to control a method of making a hole in the ice. The issue is that once you make a hole in the ice anywhere, you become subject to the weather, the wind, the underground springs that bring up water, warm water, and basically the state, I would believe, would not want people assuming that anything is safe walking on ice on this lake. It's a dangerous occupation. It's a risky occupation, and efforts to try to make it safer doesn't really bode well for people if they have a false sense of security walking out on ice, not knowing whether it's 10 inches or 1 inch with a spring underneath it. I can go on. I've gotten letters from former Commissioner Tom Foley, and just basically saying that Mount Arlington has a 25-foot open water ordinance that has worked very well. In fact, our town has had no complaints regarding same. The problem is, I believe the problem is education. I think it would be better spent to educate the public with a effort to say, you need any type of device to be on a timer and a thermometer to come on at a certain time frame for a short period of time. Absolutely, you cannot turn them on and walk away. But I've seen every device out there come up with the same problem. You can start out at one point at 10 feet or 20 feet or 30 feet, and pretty soon you could have 100 foot by a 40 foot open body of water. So that's my comments, and I would also invite the mayor if he'd like to say comments at this time.
I can respond to.
Go ahead, Dan.
Dan, you're muted.
No, he's not muted. We just can't hear him.
Yeah, I don't think he's muted.
I mean, one thing I can say is that the reason there was no complaints last year is because there was no ice last year.
That's true. And I asked him, that's why
Well, you know, bringing that up just, yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I went back in seasons, and there's only been one summons ever sent out of Hopatcong. That's all. I know it wasn't there was ice. It wasn't 100% solid.
Yeah, it's because people look the other way and they don't want to complain.
Well, I got offline there for some reason. I don't know how much of what I just said was logged or recorded, but as I said, I've been watching this for 45 years. I've been dealing with our ice retardant device, which is basically a submerged pipe with 1/4-inch holes every 18 inches. It creates a very minimal disturbance. And the trouble with the
Can't hear you, Dan.
I think he's having trouble with his internet.
Colleen, while we're waiting, I didn't see any of the slides that were supposed to be associated with that presentation. Did you add them?
Yes.
Should I have been able to see them?
I sent them to the Ice Retardant System Committee. So yes, you would have seen them. I thought the presentation was being given, so I didn't send it to everyone.
Oh, okay.
Before the meeting. But I can do that after the meeting. I thought it was going to be a presentation to the commission, so that was just a little minor miscommunication.
So you'll send that out to us after the meeting?
Sure, I can do that.
Thank
I
you
can do
very
it
much.
now.
Yeah. Well, since Dan's not able to respond, let me, I wish those pictures were available.
I can share my screen. I have it queued up so that you can.
Well, anyway, sure. The reason you're not getting more complaints is people who use the ice have kind of given up. The situation is worsening all the time as far as getting rid of the ice and kind of ruining winter recreation on the lake. It turns out that these propeller-driven machines, commonly known as ice eaters, I wanted to show this picture, if you can hold it a moment. That was 2 years ago on a Sunday. There was about 20 ice boats racing on the lake. Most of them came from, about a third of them were locals, and the rest came from South Jersey. There's 2 very active ice boat clubs there. And it just illustrates the amount of recreational activities that can be done on the lake if the ice is intact. And this supports local businesses. And as a matter of fact, that year, we almost were able to run the Eastern Ice Boating Championships on Lake Hopatcong, which would have been very, very special. Can you go to the next slide? That picture was taken later that same day. That crack that you see, that's my ice boat. It's just been actually destroyed. That's me. after I caught a runner going through this chasm, which wasn't there 20 minutes before. That was caused by wind picking up from an ice eater open area and carrying straight down the middle of the lake. And I wasn't smart enough to get off the lake soon enough that day. Anyway, it's a good illustration of what's going on. And you see some other illustrations. That's in Great Cove. So the idea was to limit these propeller-driven to things that would not create an extensive area of no ice. In order to make the ice safer, number one, for fishermen who are on the ice all the time, and for other users of the lake. And that's basically the idea behind it, because these ice eaters are very easy to install. They're very powerful. A lot of people leave them, neglect them, go away for the winter, just leave them on. And so in our regulations that we're proposing that these be registered, that ice eaters, first of all, be banned, and they are banned on certain lakes, that they be banned in favor of less intrusive ways, and that people need to register their appliances, whatever they're using, make sure they're hooked up electronically properly or electrically properly. The purpose of registration will be in part to be able to notify them if they're not around, or if they're away for the winter or whatever, that their apparatus is not behaving properly and they need to get someone to adjust or shut it off so that they can be reached and notified. But also to have some control and to try to make the ice better for recreation and safer. That's basically the idea behind this.
Okay. Anybody have anything else on ice retardant?
Can you guys hear me?
No, now we can. Now we
Okay,
can.
yeah, I don't know what's going on with my internet, but I just want to say I've been using the lake for all my life during the wintertime. And if you look at these pictures, you can clearly see large areas of continuous open water. The only reason they're open is because there's several of these propeller-driven devices in series, and the wind gets a hold of them and opens the whole thing up. We did not have these issues when we had old-fashioned bubbler systems. So we're trying to get back to the old way of doing things with bubble systems on timers and on thermostats. And yes, we've tried the public education. For whatever reason, it doesn't seem to work. And I have made these zoning officer in Hopatcong aware of this. I've been in there every time with these pictures. A lot of these pictures that you've seen, I've shown to him. So Lake Hopatcong is an aquatic public park. It's, for summer and wintertime use. And that wintertime use, as Dr. Steinbaum said, includes ice boating, snowmobiling, ice fishing, skating, and so forth. And what is important here is if you have the lake, let's say it freezes over, and then you have a situation where certain areas open up like this because of these propeller-driven devices, and then we have a flash freeze, and then you have 2 inches of snow, you're not going to be able to tell where the ice is 6 inches thick or 8 inches thick as opposed to 1 inch thick. And
Oh boy.
Austin.
Yeah, so the point he's trying to make has to do with open areas and refreezing, and there's no way to tell that the ice is very thin in that area, and that's one of the big dangers.
All right. Is there any hope, Fred, that we can get the 4 towns to adopt ordinances that would be unified, so to speak?
Well, I think a lot of the winter residents are very unhappy, and the winter users of the lake. If you look at some old pictures of the lake, there were literally thousands of people on the ice in the winter. They had carnivals, all kinds of celebrations. Sure, the winters were colder. There were cars on the lake in those days, but you know, in my lifetime, I've seen a terrible decrease in activity, and we managed to have a few accidents with drownings every year. And so we hope to meet with the towns, present to the town councils, and get a uniform plan here that really bans these propeller-driven craft.
Well, Fred, can I ask, how come they're using these propeller-driven ice eaters instead of the bubbler systems?
I'm glad.
Why do they use them?
I'm glad you asked. I've been a lakeside resident longer than I
I've
guess
been alive.
since the 1940s, and I used to use the old-time bubbler, and they were hard to install. They worked, and they were better in that they didn't open a wide area. They were effective, but they required a pump that in those days was very loud. You could hear it, you know, all the time. It was very annoying. They were a pain to install and remove, and they required a lot of maintenance. So when these propeller-driven craft came along, and I'm glad you asked that question because I have two of them, okay? That they're very easy to install. You drop them in the lake, you set them up properly. Mine are hooked to a timer and a thermostat, and I'm here every day, so I can keep a close eye on them. They're very effective, easy to install, but most people either aren't here all the time, or, you know, I'm retired, I'm around. I can watch them very closely, and I like to use the ice in the winter. So that's why they became so popular. The older systems have now been modernized. The motors are quiet, you can't even hear them. They're very efficient, and they're not any more expensive than the other system. They do require more work to install. You know, you have to do a few more things, but they're really satisfactory. And I visited during the winter some other lakes that have banned these machines that we spoke about with the propellers, and the people are happy with them, with the bubblers. They work quite well. They protect their docks and boathouses, and there's much less of a chance of them interfering with recreation and causing hazards.
Let me ask you, in one of those photos, it was like a half moon cove there, and you could see all the water was open in front of all the boathouses and docks. Are those are all propeller driven?
No.
Yes.
No.
Well, most of them are. I believe you're probably speaking of Davis Cove. There's probably 5 or 6 of them in that cove that are propeller-driven devices, and then they all end up linking together.
Okay.
Because they disturb such a large surface area. And you know, one of the things, if you look at the ordinance that we're proposing, we're suggesting a disturbance of the surface area of only 2 inches. These things, these propeller-driven devices, they act like geysers. They can spout water, you know, 6, 8, 10 inches into the water, and then plus people aim them in all kind of different directions. So these things, unfortunately, I think they cause more harm than good from a public safety perspective.
Let me ask you, the people that are using them, are they year-round residents or just summer residents?
Everybody.
It's everybody. And I sit and I ice fish in Davis Cove, and sometimes we'll have a warm day. It could be 50 degrees out, and there'll be 3 or 4 of these things in the cove running.
Okay.
I hope you don't sit there too long.
No, well, we try and fish in a safe area, but the past couple of years, we haven't been able to get into the cove where we've been fishing, as I say, for over 40 years without this being an issue. It's only within the last 5 to 10 years that this problem has really become very well pronounced.
Yeah, and it's because of the propeller-driven craft that it becomes so popular and not handled properly.
And let me just say, the last thing I want to do is regulate somebody to death or make somebody's life difficult. And I understand that people spend cubic dollars to maintain and build these waterfront structures, and they need to be protected. We're not suggesting by any means that people not be permitted to protect their structures. We're just asking that they do it in a responsible way. So I guess really what we need in conclusion is do we continue this discussion internally for a bit, or at some point we're going to need to come to some type of consensus as a body, and at some point hopefully approach the towns. That was our objective and plan.
Do we ever get a model ordinance that would have addressed this?
I took, it was part of the materials that Colleen sent around. We took Hopatcong's ordinance and we suggested changes to that as a first step to just show what we had in mind. I believe that was submitted as, with part of what Colleen sent around.
So is that, do we have that thing typed up and so we could submit it to the 4 towns and see if we can get a comment, feedback from them?
Yeah, it's typed up, but I think what we wanted to do was before we go out as a committee, because what I'd like to do, I mean, COVID got in the way, obviously, but I'd like to be able to go out as a committee and speak to the mayor and council, the governing bodies of the 4 towns, but we don't want to do that without the blessing of the commission as a whole. I think that's really what our objective is. We want to be on the same page in-house before we take this out to the world.
I agree. So let me make a suggestion for starters. You heard Marty earlier on. We have this mayor's meeting. Why don't you, Colleen, give it to me and let me bring it up at the mayor's meeting, and because that's where we'll start with it, and then see if we can get some of them to come on board, so we can get back to their councils and so forth. Maybe that's a starting point.
Ron, we already presented it at a mayor's meeting.
And we'll have, yeah, I know, but
there was so much other business going on, there wasn't much time.
well, it's kind of quiet now, so maybe now's the time to do it. They can focus on it. You're right, but right now it's been pretty quiet around the lake, and maybe this is a good time.
Well, would the committee come and present it, or would that be something that you would present on our behalf? Just so
Either or, I don't know. Marty, you're the chair of that. Marty.
Yeah. The whole meeting is usually only an hour, so, and is usually, 5 or 6 items on it. So you're talking about having about 10 minutes, and I'm looking at Mike Francis when I say that.
Well, a lot of our material could be presented in advance so that they could become familiar with it, and presumably they would have all read it, and they'd be up and running, and there would be 10 very productive minutes.
Sure.
We could present it, Marty, at one meeting, and then we'll discuss it at the next meeting. Let them take it back, review it, and see if they get any feedback, and then have it as an agenda item in the following meeting.
I would also ask, just going forward as we approach winter, I think this is something, those who have expressed concern about our work and our efforts, anytime that we see this going on, I think we should all maybe take a field trip every once in a while around the lake and take a look, because I think if you look, you'll see this.
All right, Colleen, get me a half a dozen sets or so of whatever we want to hand out, and let's Marty, maybe we can hand it out and then tell them.
We can work on getting it out electronically. It sounds like a good way forward, Ron.
All right, let's get it out electric. Then we just tell them that review it and we prepare to make it an agenda item in the following meeting or something. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome, Dan. All right. That's the end of iStar. New items. We have any item 14 on the agenda? Anything new items?
No.
Okay, then I guess we're open for our public session, public comments. You want to open the meeting to the public? Anyone wishing to be heard?
I would like to be heard. This is Donna McCrowley Holly. I'm a resident of the Lake Hopatcong, and I am only representing myself as a resident of Lake Hopatcong. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
2 things I just wanted to say. First, regarding Ashley Cove, I live near Ashley Cove, and I just want to tell you I happened to be driving by when 2 women were in a small boat there in Ashley Cove the other day, and I assume they were Princeton Hydro. So the water clarity in Ashley Cove is looking exceptionally well, almost as good as the water clarity in Crescent Cove. So I really think that the phosphate treatment there in Ashley Cove is working extremely well. There is still some, aquatic vegetation there, but the clarity, from what I understand, they had water clarity down to a meter, which is a little over 3 feet, right down to the bottom of the cove. And I can tell you that hasn't been the case for probably the last 2 to 3 years over there in Ashley Cove. So that project is really doing very well. Now, I'd just like to make a comment for those of you that don't know me. I was the former administrator of the Lake Hopatcong Commission, and I can tell you that when I was at the commission in 2010, former commissioner, he was just a resident at the time, Art Clark, had sent us photographs to the commission of areas around Lake Hopatcong where the whole lake was pretty much opened up because of the use of, excessive use of ice cedars. That was really detrimental that year. I mean, the lake literally did not freeze over. And I think it's important that the commissioners understand, not only is it a recreational issue, but it also is an issue for us as far as managing our aquatic vegetation. When our lake freezes over, it does help us to reduce the aquatic vegetation growth for the next summer, because you have that ice freezing over, you don't have the sunlight penetrating. And I think because, if you all recall, we had an excessive amount of aquatic vegetation very early in the season this year, and that was McCarthy leaf pondweed, and that grows in cold water. Last year we didn't have any ice. We had a lot of weeds in the summer, but then they kind of died out throughout the winter. So that's another important consideration when you're considering the use of ice cedars on the lake, and why it's so important to try to manage them going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent point that we should have mentioned. Thanks for bringing that up. Let nature do its job.
Yeah. Okay, anyone else in the public wishing to be heard?
Yeah, I'd like to.
There you
go. I'd like to talk a little bit about Crescent Cove and give a brief review. Of course, the whole strategy here is short-term, mid-term, and long-term management of that particular 70 acres. And so the aeration, the cove responded to the aeration better than I expected, actually, which was a good thing. That's kind of a long-term thing. But we did award the contract. We did open the bid for the sewers. We will award the contract at the next council meeting to the winning bidder. And we're still awaiting the DEP to give final approval to something they've already approved the funding for, but that's more bureaucratic nonsense from Trenton that we have to deal with, like it or not. I will proceed. We'll have another meeting. We had a meeting with the DEP about biological treatment. Was absolutely useless. They wanted peer review. I don't know where that came from, but we certainly have done that. I'm researching, actually I've talked to University of Toledo people who work with Lake Erie, and basically one of the things I'm reading as isolation and characterization of Lake Erie bacteria that degrade the cyanobacterial microcystin toxin, MCLR. That's a mouthful, but basically it uses in Lake Erie, and also a lake in New Zealand, so it's worldwide. They're using the same methodology that I'm proposing. It's really, and I will proceed to have a dialogue with the DEP. They might not like it, but there's plenty of peer review. They were afraid that we would affect the ecology of the lake by using this biological treatment that actually takes our lake water on site. We actually brew the bacteria with our lake water, so it's familiar, and then we apply it to get rid of the blue-green algae or the cyanobacterial microcystin, which is really the problem. The aeration will start to affect that, but that's a 2 or 3 year plan. We'll continue that. It's extremely effective. By the way, we'll shut the air off probably November 1st and turn it back on sometime in March, maybe March 1st, and that's usually not a bad idea to do. I have been in conversation. I got a couple of phone calls. You mentioned the other lakes, Marty. Greenwood Lake is very interested in some of the stuff we're doing. They will be down within the next week or two to ride around, take a look at what we're doing. They have been in conversation, or will be, with Everblue Lakes to see what's available for them. We'll keep talking about that. But the point is, we have to keep looking at what we're doing. And of course, if any of you who know me know that I do not support, I absolutely object to using any foreign chemicals or substances in our lake to control the lake, the quality of our water, including the blue-green algae. It can be done naturally. We just have to be more receptive to it. Again, I'll probably be talking to the DEP again by way of conference call. And if they don't want to do it, there are methodologies that we can use to get them to listen to it. And I will not stop working to protect our lake and make it better. And that's all of the above. When I talk about that, it's just not treating Crescent Cove. Although it's a perfect example of what to do. But everything I'm doing is scalable. By that I mean we can scale it up or scale it down. So, for example, the aeration that we're currently using in Crescent Cove can be used in the entire lake, including the 400 acres where there's no oxygen after 20 feet. We've known about that for 20 years at least, maybe 15. We've done nothing. Get some air in the damn lake. You start with that. Unless you get that circulation and oxygen in the lake, anything you do is an absolute waste of time treating the lake in lake. I really, we're going to work hard with our stormwater. Actually, I'm reviewing the new stormwater regulations from the state. I just got a copy of that. We will be reviewing that with our land use board and our engineer, and we'll comply and then some with the new regulation. So we understand all the pieces of the puzzle, including what's giving the nutrients to the lake. We really get it, but we still have a sick pond that we need to pay attention to. And so I'm trying to get the DEP's attention to do that. Eventually I will. They get a little thick-headed every now and then, but it's a bureaucracy that's very clumsy. And it's not the workers, it's their leadership that we're having a little bit of problem with. And so that's the challenge. You know, the ice issue, the aeration, we certainly need to take a look at that. And again, you know, what the hell did the DEP say about that? This is a aquatic park. And there's a safety issue. Where the hell is the state? They need to help they need to give it some of their expertise. I'm sure they have it. They have it on everything else. So let's get them as part of this picture. Of course, we'll sit down and have a dialogue about that. We're obligated to protect our people and our constituents. That's part of our job as elected officials. But then again, that doesn't relieve the state of their responsibility neither. So when it comes to the lake, I don't see them as a real productive player to date. We do willingly, and I think we do a pretty good job, all of us, about our lake. But when it comes to creative stuff or scalable stuff that's upscale, the DEP is not very good at what they do when it comes to that. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to be negative, but it's the truth. It's the honest to goodness truth. So we can have all of these good ideas. We can be very creative, but if it gets to a certain point, you're gonna hit a wall. And it's our job to make sure that we get past that wall and make sure our lake is better. But anyhow, I'll continue to do that. I can report back. I've had a couple of calls with the University of Toledo. They're the ones working on Lake Erie. They're actually using the same process I'm proposing for our lake to purify water. And if anybody doubts that, it's published material. It's available to the public. We need to choose to take a look at what the rest of the world is doing. I haven't called New Zealand yet, but by damn it, I can email them and see what they're doing. And in New Zealand, it's called Lake Rotoiti. That's the name of the lake in New Zealand. And they're dealing with the same thing we do, the blue-green algae. and the cyanobacteria microcystin. This is worldwide. There's people in Brazil that are using this. So this is nothing new, but it's something that we need to be open-minded about and look and see what other people have succeeded doing without dumping chemicals into the lake. I absolutely think that that is actually part of the root cause of this. And so, you know, we freely use herbicides in our lake, and I think that that's a disaster. We need to do better with that, you know. And so we always have to look at better and newer ways to do things, which I will do. And I think we are obligated to do that. Same old, just don't work anymore. We've been dealing with this for the past, well, I've been here for 47 years, and I know that we really shine a spotlight on it for the past 15 or 20 years. And look at our work product. We need to be looking at new, different methodologies and technology. We can't just keep doing the same thing and expect it to work. It's not going to. And putting foreign stuff into our lake just could be a temporary fix, but it's not the real fix. We have to go back and see what nature can do, what we can do naturally with it. So I hate to go on, but when you get me started about our lake, I can tell you I really care about it. I will not stop working. There's a wealth of information out there in the rest of the world. We need to be obligated to do that. But I'm serious about getting the state involved also. This is part of their responsibility. And so for them to say, oh, we have a safety problem, handle it, you know, that doesn't fly with me. We'll handle it, but I expect them to be a player in this field. And if for nothing else, some of the expertise they have, and they certainly have from very intelligent people down there. I know because I've met them. And so we'll have a dialogue. We certainly could talk about the ice eaters and the ice problem. But remember, we have some global warming going on. Now, I know most people might not believe that, but it's happening, folks. Our lake is warmer. Our climate is warmer. And the point I'm making here is when you put an ice eater in, maybe 10 years ago, it wasn't be such a problem. But when you put all the pieces of the puzzle together, that ice eater now is clearing 10 times more water than it did 5 years ago. Not because the device has changed, but because our climate has changed. Our lake has changed. The ambient temperature has gone up. And that adds 1 or 2 degrees makes a huge difference in the scheme of things. So we need to keep that in mind when we're looking at managing the ice and the safety. So that being said, if there's any question, I'll be more than happy. If anybody wants any of this information, please contact me. I'll be more than willing to share it, but sometimes reading it will give you a headache. But we need to do that. It's very important. So thank you,
Mayor, for your efforts. We all appreciate it. Anybody else from the public? Okay, I close the public meeting. Action items. I have one action item that I want to bring up that we discussed in the executive session. I would entertain a motion to renew the contract for CLC Corporation. That's Colleen's contract, and it would be from July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021. And the amount of the contract would be $66,150. So it would be retroactive to July 1. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
Any comments, questions? Would you call a roll, please?
Sorry, who had the second there? I didn't catch that.
I did.
Right.
All right. Hoferkamp,
Yes.
McCarthy,
Yes.
Ozowski,
Yes.
Pravs,
Yes.
Steinbaum,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Tessier,
Yes.
Gilfillan,
Yes.
Senator,
Yes.
and Smith.
Yes. Thank you. Congratulations, Colleen. We
Thank you, everyone.
appreciate your service and your efforts. We really
Thank
do.
you.
Here, here.
Are there any other action items?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Ron, we're not going to do anything on that agreement.
We lost the attorney, so we're going to see. He's going to come back to us. Then nothing can happen until we take action anyway, Bob.
I thought there was a stay motion. We were going to. All right, no problem.
Colleen's going to pull up the old document so we can see what the wording is. But nobody can do anything till we take action.
We can look at that, yeah, next month.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. We might have to have a special meeting if it comes quick. I don't know.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Well, didn't Murphy say that it should be, let's see, approve the agreement for 120 days?
We could extend that agreement for 120 days. Yes, that we could do that.
That's what I thought.
Is that what you're after, Bob?
Yes.
Okay, so
So
let's
just be-
extend that toll agreement for another 120 days.
No, I think what his wording was to say to approve the tolling agreement for 120 days.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Retroactive to the date.
Proactive.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
To what?
retroactive to when the other one ran out, right?
To the date that it was drafted.
Yeah, the date was drafted. Okay,
But how many days ago was that?
60.
so it only gives us another 60 days.
Or so.
Is that correct?
Yes, so from here it gives you 60 days because your 60 days already went by.
It'll carry us to the next meeting. It'll give them.
Yes, it'll carry you more than the next meeting, yes. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions?
Who moved it?
You did.
Oh,
You
so
did.
moved. So moved. Okay.
You did.
Okay.
Would you call a roll, please, Colleen?
Sure. Hoferkamp,
Yes.
McCarthy,
Yes.
Wazowski,
Yes.
Pravs,
Yes.
Steinbaum,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Tessier,
Yes.
Gilfillan,
Yes.
Senator,
Yes.
and Smith.
Yes. Any other action items? Now,
It should be
Fred did a motion to adjourn.
Don't move.
Second.
Second.